She threw the ring at my face and said she'd rather choke on champagne than be seen marrying a discount man like me. Laughter. Nervous. Awkward. Shaken. Like the entire ballroom was holding its collective breath, unsure if they were witnessing a cruel joke or the social execution of a man who didn't belong. And there I stood, bow tie choking me, palms clammy, smiling like a fool, still trying to believe the woman I loved hadn't just torn my spine out in front of 300 people. She meant every word. Natalie Windsor, my fiancée, at least until 7 minutes ago, stood tall in her couture gown, lip curled in disgust, tossing me aside like something she'd stepped in on her way to the Ritz. And the worst part? I saw it coming. But let me rewind. Let me tell you exactly how I ended up humiliated in a chandelier-lit ballroom filled with hedge fund execs, media darlings, and political dynasties who couldn't pronounce my last name unless it was followed by, "You're not on the list." I'm Daniel Carson, 31. System security consultant. Detroit-born, Chicago-raised. Middle class. Blue-collar mother. 3 jobs in high school. Grew up with enough love but not enough food. You know the type, quiet, hardworking, loyal to a fault. The kind women say they want, until they realize love doesn't come with a trust fund. And Natalie? She was everything I wasn't. Old money. Ivy League. Beauty that turned heads and confidence that broke necks. When we met, she said she liked that I was genuine, that I didn't care about her money, that I made her laugh. I was naive enough to believe that meant something. I remember the first time she took me to her family's lake house in upstate New York. I showed up with a 6-pack and a barbecue smile. Her father looked at my car like it was leaking oil on the universe. Her mother introduced me to guests as Natalie's friend. But I smiled. Swallowed the sting. Because love was supposed to be enough. I should have listened when my buddy Miles pulled me aside and said, "Man, you're a pet project to her. You don't marry into royalty without paying a price." Still, when Natalie proposed, yes, she proposed, I thought I'd won. That maybe, just maybe, she loved me enough to choose me over the status games. I didn't know then that I was just a pawn in her long game. A placeholder. A revenge toy for her ex, Tristan Langford, the real-life Ken doll her family had actually approved of before he flew off to some startup retreat in Bali for a year. When he came back, I should have seen the signs, the sudden distance, the pity in her eyes, the way she started calling me sweet like it was an insult. But I played along. Wore the suit, practiced the speech, booked the venue. Because I wasn't just going to let her humiliate me. No. I was going to let her try. Because I had a plan. A secret. A revelation I'd been saving for this very moment. And when it came, her smirk would vanish, the laughter would stop, and the power she thought she had over me would crack like cheap porcelain. She wanted a scene. She'd get one. Only it wouldn't end the way she expected. People assume betrayal starts with a knife in the back. Sudden. Sharp. Devastating. But the truth? It starts with something quieter. A pause between laughs that used to come easy. A glance that lingers too long on someone else. A simple, everyday silence that starts to feel loaded. I used to count the seconds between those silences. That's how I knew Natalie was slipping away from me, long before she made it public. But I'm getting ahead of myself. I wasn't supposed to be part of her world. I was raised in a 1-bedroom apartment above a laundromat on 6 Mile Road in Detroit. My mom worked nights at the hospital and cleaned offices during the day. We didn't have money, but she had backbone. And she drilled into me the idea that if I worked hard, stayed honest, and kept my head down, I'd get somewhere. And I did. MIT gave me a shot. Not because I was a genius, but because I could outwork anyone. I skipped parties, studied through spring breaks, graduated top 5%. Moved to Chicago, started in data security, made enough to stop counting grocery items before checkout. I wasn't flashy, but I was solid. Dependable. A man building something brick by brick. And then I met her. Natalie Windsor. She walked into a cybersecurity gala wearing a black dress that probably cost more than my rent, and ordered a bourbon neat like she owned the room. Because she did. Her family's name was plastered across buildings, charities, and 2 Senate campaigns. She said she liked my talk on encryption. I thought she was messing with me. But she wasn't. Not at first, anyway. Our first date was sushi on the river. She talked about art and Monaco. I talked about firewalls and football. We laughed. She made me feel like I mattered, not just for what I did, but for who I was. I was hooked. Soon I was attending charity balls, weekend getaways in the Berkshires, and dinners where the wine list needed its own translator. I bought new suits. I learned how to fold pocket squares. Memorized names of senators and CEOs just to stay in the conversation. I didn't belong, but I tried. God, I tried. Every time her father sneered or her mother offered to introduce me to a career coach, Natalie would hold my hand tighter. I thought that meant something. Looking back, I realize, she didn't bring me in because she believed in me. She brought me in because I was a project, an accessory, something to hold until Tristan came back from wherever the hell rich people go to find themselves. But I didn't see that yet. For a while, she let me in. We'd cook together in her downtown apartment, me burning eggs, her laughing, both of us in sweats, no filters, no audience. In those rare moments, I believed what we had was real. And maybe, for a flicker of time, it was. But flickers don't last. She started correcting me in public, mocking my pronunciation of wines, laughing when I got nervous before speaking at her fundraisers. Slowly, I became something to polish, to manage, to quiet down. I ignored it. I told myself it was stressful. Her father's disapproval, wedding pressure. The lies we tell ourselves in the name of love are louder than the truth ever dares to be. And I was loud, deafening, even. When she proposed, on a yacht, under the fireworks, I said yes so fast, I didn't see her hands shaking. Then came the party planning. The seating charts filled with socialites and senators. Her insistence that we keep my family's involvement low-key. She said it was about optics. I nodded like a good man. But something inside me started fraying. It wasn't just her. It was how her world demanded that I shrink to fit into it. Her friends looked through me. Her father introduced me to colleagues as a tech guy, like I fixed Wi-Fi for a living. The deeper I went, the smaller I felt. Until the day I found the emails. I wasn't snooping. Natalie left her laptop open while she showered. And like a fool, I thought I'd surprise her by ordering takeout from her favorite place. But her inbox was still open. Subject line, "You're back." Finally. The thread was long. Weeks. Maybe months. Heart emojis. Naked promises. My name, mocked. My love, dismissed. I wasn't her future. I was a placeholder until Tristan returned from Switzerland. And yet, I didn't scream. I didn't smash anything. I just sat there. Scrolling. Numb. When she came out of the bathroom, wrapped in a silk robe, I asked her one question. Was any of it ever real? She looked at me, blank. No panic. No shame. Just a sigh. You made me feel safe. I needed that. But love? Daniel, this was never going to work. That was the moment something broke. Not just between us, but in me. I spent my whole life building something real. Honest. I never played games, never cut corners. And here I was, being discarded like a used napkin because I wasn't born into the right zip code. She said we should still throw the engagement party, keep up appearances. And again, I nodded. But I wasn't broken. I was waking up. I realized that the same work ethic I used to build my life could be used to dismantle hers. And so I began planning, not just revenge. Not just payback. Justice. For every man who was told he wasn't enough. For every woman who had to prove her worth twice. For every kid who grew up thinking love had to hurt to be real. If Natalie wanted a show, I'd give her a finale she'd never forget. The first real betrayal wasn't the emails. It was the look in her eyes when I asked her, calmly, if she was still in love with Tristan. She blinked, once, slow, then tilted her head like I was asking something embarrassingly sentimental. Love? She repeated. Daniel, you're sweet. But love isn't everything. No denial. No apology. Just that voice, cool, rehearsed, dripping with gentle condescension. The kind that tells you not just that you've lost, but that you were never playing the right game. That night, I slept in the guest room. Not because I was angry, but because I didn't want her to see me cry. She wouldn't understand. That woman hadn't felt a raw emotion since college debate club. I remember lying there, staring at the ceiling, her voice echoing in my head. I needed someone stable, not someone to fall for. Tristan is unpredictable. You were easy. This engagement gave me breathing room. Each word peeled something off my skin. She wasn't even hiding it anymore. I wasn't a partner. I was an emotional crutch in a tailored suit. The next morning, she acted like nothing had happened. She had coffee in hand, legs crossed on the kitchen island, flipping through a bridal magazine. "You're quiet today," she said, not looking up. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw that coffee across the room and ask her how long she'd been faking. But I just said, "Just tired." That was the beginning of my performance. From that moment on, I played the role she'd cast me in, obedient, agreeable, perfectly oblivious. I let her believe I was still hanging on, that I still believed in us. And in the background, I watched her unravel. She started disappearing on weekends. Claimed she was reconnecting with old friends. Her phone was always face down. Once, I saw her smile at a text and touch her lips, soft, wistful, like someone remembering something that mattered. It wasn't for me. She started planting little bombs in conversation. "Don't wear that to the fundraiser, okay? It's fine, but let's do something sharper." My father asked me again, "What you actually do? Maybe prep him with something simpler. Let's not invite your family to the engagement party. They won't enjoy themselves." Each cut was shallow, surgical. Enough to draw blood, never enough to be called abuse. And I let her. Because I had already begun building something deeper. I started gathering evidence, not just of her betrayal, but of who she truly was. Her cruelty wasn't just directed at me. I dug into her business dealings. With Alyssa's help, a friend from MIT who now worked as an investigative journalist, I uncovered her startup's padded expense reports, sketchy offshore transfers, and insider dealings with her cousin's lobbying firm. And Tristan? He wasn't some golden god. He'd tanked 2 ventures in Dubai. His family's investment firm quietly covered up a sexual harassment scandal he was named in. I found the non-disclosure payout. It was sickening. Natalie called me paranoid. She had no idea I already had a burner phone synced to her emails. Or that I'd started recording every conversation we had in that penthouse suite. And then came the final straw. 2 weeks before the engagement party, she came home late. Lipstick smudged. Hair tousled. She smelled like his cologne, cedar and vetiver. I knew it because she once gave me the same scent in a box I never opened. She said it was too bold for me. Maybe it wasn't meant for me at all. I didn't confront her. I asked her how her evening was. "Lovely," she said, smiling. "Just drinks with Tristan. He's back from Geneva." I just nodded. My heart didn't race. My hands didn't shake. That part of me had been burned out. What was left was ash and calculation. The next day, I went to see Leah. We hadn't spoken in years. We dated briefly after college. She was sharp, grounded, gorgeous in a real-world kind of way. Back then, I wasn't ready. I wanted someone who challenged me in all the wrong ways, someone like Natalie. Leah ran a non-profit consulting firm now. When I told her what I'd been through, she didn't laugh or say, "I told you so." She just listened. And when I asked her to help me with something unconventional, she agreed, on one condition. "You don't do this for revenge," she said. "You do it to remind yourself who you are." I didn't know what I was anymore. But I knew what I wasn't: disposable. The engagement party moved forward. Natalie micromanaged everything: guest list, menu, lighting. She insisted the photographer be flown in from Italy. She booked a speech coach for me without asking. Said she wanted my delivery to match the room. It was almost funny. She thought she was managing the narrative. What she didn't know was that Tristan would be there, invited anonymously. That reporters were being tipped off about her firm's shady practices. That regulators would be opening her books the following week. That I had a custom-built presentation ready to interrupt the big moment with a reveal no one saw coming. But most importantly, she didn't know about Leah. Not yet. Natalie thought I was still broken. Still playing the part of the grateful nobody she could dump the moment it stopped serving her. She didn't know the man she thought she'd hollowed out had grown teeth. And claws. I spent the final night before the party sitting alone on the hotel balcony, watching the skyline glow like a slow-burning fire. I sipped cheap scotch out of a crystal tumbler she bought me and thought about all the times I stayed silent when I should have fought back. About all the moments I excused her cruelty in the name of class, of ambition, of love. I wasn't going to stay silent anymore. She'd taken everything that was soft in me and weaponized it against me. Now, I was going to take everything she built and show her what it's like to be humiliated, exposed, abandoned. But I wasn't doing it just for me. I was doing it for every person who ever sat in the corner of a golden room, wondering if their worth was measured in birthright. And I'd start with 6 words. She said she'd rather die. Revenge doesn't start with rage. It starts with clarity. That night on the balcony, sipping scotch she bought, staring down at a city she thought she ruled, I stopped being the man who loved Natalie Windsor. I became the man who would destroy her. But not with fire. Not with scandal alone. That would be too easy. No, this had to be exact. Surgical. A dismantling so complete that she wouldn't just lose her power, she'd choke on the silence that followed. So I began with her greatest weakness, image. Natalie had always been obsessed with appearances. She curated her life like an Instagram grid, flawless, calculated, luxurious. Her engagement to me, part of that aesthetic. A narrative of humility and grounded balance, to soften her ice queen reputation in investor circles. I was the emotional prop to sell her as relatable. So I'd turn that lie into her collapse. I started laying the trap with the only weapon I ever trusted, information. First, I called Alyssa. She was more than just a friend from MIT, she was a former investigative prodigy who got blacklisted after blowing the whistle on a hedge fund linked to a political donor. She owed me a favor. I gave her every thread I had. Natalie's fake quarterly reports, the shady licensing deals, offshore transfer screenshots from the burner laptop she used when she didn't want things traceable. Alyssa cross-checked it with public filings and found something explosive. Natalie's startup wasn't just cooking its books, it was laundering investor funds into her family's shell companies in Nevada and Panama. Illegal, traceable, and irrefutable. Second, I made contact with the one person Natalie feared more than me, Tristan Langford. Or rather, I contacted his assistant. I sent her a polite email from a pseudonym account. Attached were screenshots of Natalie's emails, the ones where she promised to marry me while still planning candlelit weekends with Tristan. A note at the end read, "If you think she'll treat you better, go ahead. Just don't say you weren't warned." I knew his ego wouldn't let it go. He'd confront her before the party. Maybe not leave her outright, but the doubt would grow. That's all I needed. A crack. And then came Leah. I hadn't seen her in 4 years. Our breakup wasn't tragic, just poorly timed. I wasn't ready for her steadiness back then. I was still chasing chaos. Still convinced that love had to feel like danger. When I showed up at her office, she blinked twice before standing. No hug. Just that quiet look she always gave when she was thinking 3 steps ahead. "I'm guessing this isn't a social visit," she said. I told her everything. Not to get her back. Not even to win sympathy. I just needed one person who remembered who I was before Natalie. Before I bent myself into a shape she could tolerate. And Leah, to my surprise, didn't hesitate. "You're not doing this to hurt her," she said after a long silence. "You're doing this to reclaim yourself. But if you want my help, it has to end clean. No threats. No shouting. You're going to make her walk into her own trap, and smile while doing it." She was perfect. We made a plan. Leah would attend the party as my real fiancée. Not just arm candy, but poised, intelligent, untouchable. The mirror image of everything Natalie pretended to be. Her presence alone would shift the narrative. From a jilted lover to a man who chose to walk away. I hired a PR strategist, too, one of Leah's contacts. Together, we timed a slow leak to media outlets. Rumors. Nothing concrete. Just whispers about discrepancies in Natalie's investor statements. Speculation about insider trading. Enough smoke to get people watching. Then I rehearsed my speech. The one I was supposed to give at the party. The one where I professed love and gratitude. I reworked every word. Practiced the rhythm. Slipped in double meanings. Foreshadowed betrayal in compliments. Honored what we once had, while leading the room to the edge of truth. Every line had purpose. Every pause was a dagger wrapped in velvet. Natalie still thought I was coming unprepared. She was busy obsessing over tablecloth textures and influencer guest lists while I was engineering her downfall. She didn't notice when I asked about music timing, or if the photographer could capture the room right when speeches started. She just rolled her eyes and told me to stay in my lane. I stayed, smiling, watching, setting each domino in place. And one by one, they stood ready. A leak to the press scheduled for 9 p.m. the night of the party. A photographer paid under the table to capture only Natalie's face during my speech. A guest list that included 3 financial journalists posing as mutual acquaintances. Tristan, simmering with betrayal, unsure whether he was being played or exposed. Leah, radiant, waiting for her cue. And me, the groom-to-be, rehearsed to the bone and ready to pull the trigger. I didn't want her to cry. I wanted her to understand, in that slow, painful way only the vain and powerful do, that everything she built could be taken apart by the man she thought too small to matter. I wanted her to taste the very thing she fed me for months. Insignificance. And when she finally realized who she was standing next to, and how far I'd come, not with money, but with focus, I wanted her to feel it not in her skin, but in her legacy. Because some people fear scandal. Natalie Windsor fears irrelevance. And that was exactly what I was about to give her. I stood at the edge of the ballroom, fingers wrapped tightly around a glass of sparkling water, the bitter bubbles bursting on my tongue. Everything was exactly as I planned. The venue, her family's ancestral estate in New York, buzzed with money, pretense, and polished hypocrisy. I wore the same tailored navy suit Claire once picked for me back when she still pretended I was her equal. The irony fits perfectly. A string quartet played something classical and forgettable in the corner, and crystal chandeliers showered light across the high ceilings. The guests were exactly who I wanted: Manhattan elites, business associates, socialites, and of course, the Holloways. All of them sipping champagne, congratulating Claire on her new engagement, to Landon Hartwell. The same Landon who used to call me blue-collar fantasy boy when Claire and I first started dating. But I wasn't here to relive old insults. I was here to bury them. When Claire spotted me across the room, her smile vanished. I watched her brain short-circuit, caught between disbelief and confusion. She hadn't seen me since that night she humiliated me in front of both our families. I left without a word, and I made damn sure she couldn't find me, not online, not through friends, not even a whisper through my former workplace. I ghosted the entire East Coast. Until now. "What are you doing here?" she hissed, striding toward me like she still had some kind of control. I turned, slow and calm. I was invited. Your mother was quite insistent, actually. Her eyes flicked to the left, where her mother, in pearls and pride, stood beaming beside my date. Or rather, my fiancée. Samantha Monroe. Former Wall Street analyst, current founder of a women's venture capital firm, and daughter of Reginald Monroe, who, funnily enough, had just purchased a 42% stake in the Holloways family company last quarter. The same Monroe who could, with a single board vote, reduce the Holloways' influence to ceremonial dust. Claire didn't know any of this yet. But she would. Samantha was radiant in emerald green, the ring on her finger glittering unapologetically. It wasn't just about wealth, it was about presence. Where Claire once held power through passive beauty and privilege, Samantha wielded hers with directness and unshakable calm. That night, she was the centerpiece, and everyone knew it. "You're engaged," Claire finally said, her voice cracking, her eyes darting across the room like she was trying to find an emergency exit from her own party. "Yes," I said simply, watching her with measured stillness. "We met in LA. You know, where people actually earn their status." I could almost hear her teeth grind. "You came here just to flaunt her," Claire snapped, stepping closer. "Is that what this is? Some petty revenge tour?" I let out a soft laugh. "Claire, this isn't about flaunting. It's about clarity. You told a ballroom full of people that you'd rather die than marry me. I believed you. And I moved on. But now, you get to feel the flip side." Her hand twitched. She wanted to slap me. Maybe scream. Maybe cry. But she couldn't, because every pair of eyes in that room was watching her. She'd taught me that power isn't about being the loudest in the room. It's about letting silence work in your favor. And at that moment, Claire was crumbling inside her own castle. But I wasn't finished. "I also wanted to congratulate you on your engagement," I said, nodding toward Landon, who was across the room nursing a drink and looking wildly uncomfortable. "Though I'd be careful. He's got a bit of a gambling problem, doesn't he? Atlantic City. Private debt collectors." Her face paled. "How do you?" "I didn't just disappear, Claire. I studied. Watched. Prepared. Because I knew Claire would try to find someone with equal pedigree, but no one ever checked deeper than the headline. Not her. Not her family. Landon had the name, the suit, the smile, but not the foundation. And within 3 weeks, the cracks would show. She turned back toward the crowd, face stiff, smile breaking in all the wrong places. The cameras flashed again. This time, they captured her fear. And just when she thought the humiliation was over, I made my final move. Samantha clinked her glass gently and cleared her throat. "Thank you all for being here. I just want to say how excited I am to be working closely with the Holloways on our new joint venture. We're looking forward to a very transformative quarter. The board members in the room shifted. They hadn't heard about this. That was the point. Claire turned back to me, now fully aware that this wasn't just personal. It was systemic. I hadn't just shown up to gloat. I showed up to unmake the very narrative she built at my expense. You think you've won? She whispered. I looked at her for a long beat. Then I shook my head. This isn't about winning, Claire. This is about making sure you understand what you lost. And with that, I walked away, hand in hand with my real fiancée. The only woman in that room who knew my full story, who believed in me when I had nothing, and who didn't need to break me to feel big. As we stepped into the warm summer air outside the hall, I felt the weight lift from my chest. Not because Claire had finally seen what she'd done, but because I had reclaimed the parts of myself she tried to erase. I didn't just get even. I got free. It's been 3 months since the engagement party that shattered illusions, broke egos, and unshackled me from the chains I didn't even realize I wore. People still talk about that night like it was a scene from a prestige drama. Some say I was cruel. Others, that I was brave. Personally, I don't think I was either. I was just done being someone else's stepping stone. After the party, Meredith vanished from the public eye for a while. She issued a vague apology online, citing emotional distress, burnout, and confusion about love. Her father's law firm distanced itself from her, and even her exclusive charity gala invites stopped rolling in. The woman who built her brand on perfection unraveled in the most public way possible. And me? I didn't gloat. I didn't post screenshots or give interviews. I went back to my job. I walked into my office with a coffee in hand and a story no one dared to bring up out loud. My co-workers gave me that look, half respect, half awe. Like I'd walked through fire and come back holding a torch. What they didn't know was how heavy that torch had been, or how cold the nights were before I lit it. In the aftermath, I took a hard look at my life, my goals, my values, and who I'd become while chasing Meredith's love. I'd let her mold me into something quieter, more pliable. I'd tiptoed around her moods, swallowed my instincts, and told myself love was about compromise. But real love doesn't require you to shrink. I started therapy. Not because I was broken, but because I wanted to understand why I'd let someone treat me like I didn't matter. I needed to know what part of me thought I had to earn love instead of simply being worthy of it. Turns out, there's a lot to unpack when you grow up middle class in a world that tells you wealth is synonymous with worth. When you're taught that privilege deserves deference. I had believed, deep down, that being with someone like Meredith elevated me. That I was lucky she chose me. But I wasn't lucky. I was used to it. And now I'm free. I'm dating again. Slowly. Carefully. I don't let charm blind me anymore. I watch for kindness. I listen for consistency. I value being seen, not just looked at. There's a woman I met at a coffee shop, an architect named Nina. She has laugh lines and opinions and doesn't care what car I drive. We've had 3 dates. Each one honest. Each one is easy. I also finally pitched my own real estate startup idea to an angel investor I met through a client. The proposal was strong. They said yes. I'm launching in the spring, my own firm, built on transparency and trust, not flash and spectacle. The irony? If Meredith had married me, I would have never dared to dream this big. Her betrayal didn't destroy me, it forced me to become. Some nights, I still hear her words echoing, I'd rather die than marry you. And yet, I'm alive. Fully. I walk taller now. Laugh easier. And when I look in the mirror, I see someone who's not afraid of loss anymore. Because I learned something priceless. When someone throws you away, it says more about them than it ever did about you. Meredith made me feel small. But I made myself whole. And that, in the end, is the greatest revenge of all.